What if the history you learned in school is only part of the story? What if scattered across the globe in shipwrecks and forgotten tombs, there are artifacts so strange they just don't make sense? These aren't just old curiosities. They're objects that make you question everything. They hint at lost technologies, forgotten languages, and a past that might be far more advanced than we've ever been told. For centuries, these mysteries have stumped the smartest people around, and they still challenge the very timeline of human history. Today, we're counting down 5 of the weirdest historical mysteries ever found. From a 2,000-year-old computer to a map that seems to show Antarctica without any ice, these objects force us to wonder, what else did we get wrong about our own past? Get ready, because these are the stories of things that shouldn't exist, but do. Kicking us off at number 5 is a discovery that literally redrew the map and still sparks arguments 500 years later. Back in 1929, a German theologian was sorting through antiques in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace when he found a strange piece of gazelle skin. Sketched on it was a map, but not just any map. It was signed in 1513 by a famous Turkish admiral named Piri Reis, and it was about to throw a wrench in our understanding of history. Piri Reis was the real deal, a celebrated admiral and a seasoned navigator. He even wrote on the map that he'd used about 20 different sources to create it, including ancient Greek maps, and get this, a map supposedly drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. At first, everyone was impressed by how accurate it was, showing the coasts of Europe, North Africa, and a surprisingly detailed South America. It was a 16th century masterpiece. But the closer people looked, the weirder it got. First off, the map seems to use the Mercator projection, a technique that shows the round Earth on a flat map, which is crucial for navigation. The problem? The Mercator projection wasn't officially invented until 1569, over 50 years after Piri Reis drew his map. So how did he use a mapping technique that hadn't been invented yet? Some think he had access to ancient source maps that held this lost knowledge, but that was just the warm-up. The map's most shocking feature was at the very bottom. Sticking out from the coast of South America is a landmass that looks an awful lot like the coast of Antarctica. Now, according to the history books, that's impossible. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, almost 300 years after Piri Reis. This detail sparked a huge debate, which exploded in 1965 with Professor Charles Hapgood's book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. Hapgood argued that the map didn't just show Antarctica, it showed the coastline before it was covered by ice. Geologists tell us that Antarctica has been frozen over for at least 6,000 years. For Hapgood's theory to be true, the map's original sources would have to be from at least 4000 BCE. This was a wild claim. It suggested that a prehistoric, super-advanced civilization with the tech to map the globe existed thousands of years before anyone we know of. Could Piri Reis have stumbled upon a map from a lost civilization? It's a mind-bending idea. If it's true, who were they? What happened to them? But there's a much more grounded explanation. Skeptics argue that the landmass isn't Antarctica at all. They say it's just the southern coast of South America, probably Patagonia, bent eastward to fit on the piece of parchment. They point out that a lot of the map is distorted and features common mythical lands from that era. Today, the vast majority of scholars believe this is the case, and that the Antarctica theory is a classic example of seeing what you want to see. And so, the mystery continues. Is the Piri Reis map a window into a lost civilization, or a brilliant but flawed masterpiece from a 16th century admiral? Either way, it remains one of history's greatest riddles. A map of a world that technically shouldn't have been mapped. Our next mystery takes us to the deserts of Egypt, way back to the dawn of its civilization, before the Great Pyramids were even a thought. In 1936, at the massive burial ground of Saqqara, an Egyptologist named Walter Bryan Emery was excavating the tomb of a big-shot official named Sabu, who lived around 3100 BCE. Inside the tomb, among the usual pottery and bones, Emery found something totally out of place. It was a circular object, carved from a single piece of super-fragile rock called schist. It's known as the Sabu disc. The disc is about 2 feet across, and it's not just a flat plate. It has 3 thin, curved lobes that fold in toward a hollow center, kind of like a steering wheel or even a propeller. This is where things get weird. The craftsmanship is insane. Schist is a brittle rock that flakes easily. Carving something this delicate and symmetrical with the simple copper and stone tools they had back then seems almost impossible. It is a stunning piece of work that really challenges what we thought was possible in Egypt's first dynasty. But the real mystery isn't how it was made, it's why. What was it for? Emery himself had no clue. He guessed it might be a fancy bowl that sat on a stand, but no stand was ever found. For decades, it sat in the Cairo Museum, a beautiful object with no known purpose. Over the years, theories started flying. Some Egyptologists think it was a ritual object, maybe a fancy tray for offerings or a stand for a three-flame lamp. Others suggest it was just a stone copy of a metal object, created by a carver just to show off their skills, even if the stone version was too fragile to actually use. But those explanations don't quite satisfy people who look at the disc's strange, functional-looking design. The lobes look aerodynamic, which has led to some pretty wild theories. Could it be a part from some ancient machine? Some have guessed it was a flywheel for storing energy or part of a water pump. Aerospace engineers even 3D printed replicas to test it and found it does have aerodynamic properties. But they also concluded its perfect symmetry means it couldn't work as a propeller, since the blades aren't pitched to push air or water. This leads to an even crazier idea. What if the disc isn't the machine part itself, but a model of one? Maybe ancient craftsmen found a piece of technology from an even older, unknown civilization, and unable to replicate it in metal, they copied its shape in stone. This would make the Sabu disc an echo of a forgotten technological past. Of course, there's no proof of this. It's pure speculation. And mainstream Egyptologists argue that seeing a modern machine part in an ancient object is just our modern brains projecting. The shape might look aerodynamic to us, but that doesn't mean it was designed for flight. Still, the questions won't go away. Why this unique shape? Nothing like it has ever been found in the thousands of tombs across Egypt. Why was it buried with someone as important as Sabu? The Sabu disc is a perfect mystery, a 5,000-year-old question mark carved in stone. We're not even halfway through. Before we get to our top 3, if you're finding this as fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We dive into history's weirdest corners every week. We have to ask, which one baffles you more? The impossible map or the futuristic disc? Drop your theory in the comments. Now let's head to number 3. For our number 3 spot, we're off to the deserts of southern Peru, where the ground itself has been turned into a giant canvas. Scratched across nearly 200 square miles are hundreds of massive drawings known as the Nazca lines. These aren't just doodles. They're enormous geoglyphs of animals, plants, and geometric shapes, with some straight lines running for miles. Created between 500 BCE and 500 CE. These figures are so huge you can only tell what they are from high up in the air, a view their creators never had. And that's the core of this incredible mystery. The Nazca people made these lines by simply scraping away the reddish-brown surface pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored soil underneath. Because this desert is one of the driest places on Earth, the lines have been preserved for almost 2,000 years. We're talking about 70 huge drawings of animals like a 600-foot-long lizard, a spider, a monkey, and a hummingbird, plus hundreds of geometric shapes and straight lines. There's even a humanoid figure on a hillside that people have nicknamed the astronaut. The mystery here is twofold. How did they make them so precisely? And more importantly, why? The how is actually the easier part to solve. Researchers have shown that a small, organized crew could have created these figures with simple tools, by making a small-scale model and then using stakes and ropes to scale it up. Now, they could have laid out these massive designs pretty accurately. It was an impressive feat of planning, but it didn't require alien technology, just clever engineering. The real head-scratcher is why. Why pour so much effort into creating giant art that you can't even see from the ground? This question has led to all sorts of theories. One of the most famous ideas from researcher Maria Reich is that the lines were a giant astronomical calendar. She believed the straight lines aligned with the sun, moon, and stars during events like the solstices. It's helping the Nazca track seasons for farming and ceremonies. While some alignments do exist, most of the lines don't seem to point to anything significant, which has weakened this theory. A more popular theory today connects the lines to the most precious thing in a desert, water. Archaeologists now think the lines were sacred pathways that people walked along during religious rituals to please their gods and beg for rain. Many of the animal figures, like spiders and hummingbirds, are linked to water and fertility in local cultures. Finding ancient underground aqueducts nearby seems to support this idea. And then, of course, there's the ancient astronaut theory. Popularized in the 20th century, this idea claims the lines were landing strips for alien spaceships or giant messages for visiting sky gods. While it's a fun idea that has captured the public's imagination, there's absolutely no evidence to support it, and scientists and archaeologists universally dismiss it. Recently, drones have revealed hundreds of new, smaller figures, suggesting the tradition is older and more complex than we thought. Maybe there wasn't just one reason for the lines. Perhaps they were used for different things over the 1,000 years they were being made. What we know for sure is that the Nazca lines are a monumental achievement, an open-air temple etched into the earth. We're looking at a message, but its true meaning is still carried away on the desert winds. Our runner-up mystery isn't made of stone or metal, but of pages and ink. It's a book, but it's a book like no other. Known as the Voynich manuscript, this 240-page codex has been called the world's most mysterious manuscript. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, it's filled with elegant script and bizarre illustrations. There's just one tiny problem. No one can read a single word of it. The manuscript is named after the book dealer who found it in 1912. For over 600 years, it has obsessed historians, linguists, and the world's best codebreakers, including Alan Turing's team that cracked the Nazi Enigma code. They all tried to decipher it. They all failed. The mystery is its unique unknown script, called Voynichese. The text flows like a real language, written from left to right with its own alphabet. Statistical analysis shows that it isn't random gibberish. Certain words repeat, and letter patterns follow rules, just like a natural language. It looks real, but it matches no known language on Earth. The illustrations are just as weird. The book is divided into sections, starting with an herbal section full of plants that don't seem to exist. Botanists have tried and failed to match them to any known species. They're like alien flowers with impossible roots and stems. Another section is astronomical, with strange diagrams of suns, moons, and stars that don't line up with any known constellations. Then, there's the balneological section, which is the weirdest part. It shows pages of small, naked women bathing in elaborate tubs connected by a network of pipes that look like veins or intestines. It's bizarre. So what is this book? The first theory is that it's a code. Maybe it's a known language like Latin, but encrypted. The problem is, if it's a code, it's one of the most brilliant ever devised, as it stumped every attempt to crack it. Another idea is that it's a lost or artificial language, like Esperanto, or the last surviving text of a language that has gone completely extinct. This would explain why it looks real, but is totally untranslatable. A more cynical theory is that the whole thing is just a brilliant hoax. Maybe some clever con artist in the 15th century faked the book to sell to a rich collector. The text would be meaningless gibberish, carefully crafted to look real. And the weird drawings would make it seem more valuable and mysterious. Recently, AI has taken a crack at it. In 2016, an AI trained on hundreds of languages concluded the source language was likely ancient Hebrew, encrypted with anagrams. It even offered a potential translation for the first sentence. For a moment, people thought this was the breakthrough, but other experts quickly pointed out flaws in the method. The AI had found patterns, but it hadn't solved the mystery. And so, the Voynich manuscript remains locked away in its own secret language. Is it a guide to magical plants, an alchemist's diary, or the most successful literary hoax of all time? I just don't know. It sits at Yale University, a beautiful and utterly maddening enigma. And here we are, at our #1 weirdest historical mystery. This is an artifact so advanced, so out of its time, that it completely rewrote our understanding of the ancient world. It suggests a level of genius that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. This is the Antikythera mechanism. The story starts in 1901. Greek sponge divers found an ancient Roman shipwreck near the island of Antikythera. It was full of treasure, But among the statues and jewelry was a lump of corroded bronze. For a year, it sat in a museum until a piece broke off, revealing something impossible inside: a gear wheel. As researchers used X-rays and CT scans to peer inside the corroded mess, an unbelievable machine emerged. The lump of bronze was the world's first known analog computer. It was a complex system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, all housed in a wooden case about the size of a shoebox. So what did this thing do? By turning a hand crank, a user could calculate all sorts of astronomical information. The front face showed the positions of the sun and the moon against the zodiac. Reconstructions suggest it was also designed to track the 5 planets known to the ancients: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Though how well it did, this is still debated by scholars. The back of the device had 2 large spiral dials. One tracked a calendar cycle used to predict solar and lunar eclipses. It didn't show where on Earth an eclipse would be visible or what color the moon would be. But it could predict when they would happen based on a known cycle. It also had a smaller dial that tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, letting the user know when the next games were scheduled. To put this in perspective, nothing this mechanically complex shows up again in history for over 1,000 years until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe. We knew the ancient Greeks were brilliant, but we thought their technology was much simpler. The Antikythera mechanism proved they had mastered precision engineering. The tiny geared teeth, carved with incredible precision, look like something from a modern workshop. However, recent studies suggest it wasn't perfect. Simulations showed the gears might have slipped or jammed. Its planetary predictions could have been off by dozens of degrees, likely requiring frequent resets. But even with its flaws, its existence raises huge questions. Who could have built this? The level of knowledge required was immense. But the biggest question is this: if they could build this, what else did they build? The Antikythera mechanism probably wasn't a one-off. It seems too refined. Feels like the result of a long tradition of mechanical engineering, a tradition that has been completely lost to history. This one only survived because it was on a sunken ship. Are we looking at a glimpse of a lost technological age, one far more advanced than we ever imagined? The Antikythera mechanism is a ghost from a lost world of genius. It's a computer from a time before computers should have existed. It doesn't just challenge our timeline of technology. It shatters it. It is, without a doubt, the weirdest and most awe-inspiring historical artifact ever found. So there you have it. 5 artifacts that just don't fit. From a map showing a continent centuries too early to a 5,000-year-old disk that looks eerily modern. From giant desert drawings meant for the sky to a book no one on Earth can read. And finally, an ancient computer so complex it feels like it fell out of time. Each one is a reminder that history isn't a closed book. It's a puzzle with a ton of missing pieces. They hint that our ancestors might have known things we've forgotten, and that our timeline of innovation is way more interesting than we thought. They challenge us to stay curious, to question what we think we know, and to accept that the past still has plenty of secrets to give up. What other mysteries are out there waiting to be found? The hunt for answers is far from over. Thanks for joining us on this trip into the unknown. If you enjoyed geeking out over these historical mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an expedition. Which of these 5 mysteries gets to you the most? And are there any other unexplained artifacts you want us to look into? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Till next time, keep questioning.